Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for our invocation. With us tonight is Pastor Adele Resmer from New Journey Lutheran Church.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we give you thanks for this day and for the many gifts that you have bestowed on us, seen and unseen. We give you thanks for life and the opportunity to use our lives in service of others. We thank you for the members of this town council and their commitment to work on behalf of all members of this community. Guide their deliberations so that respect, openness, and wisdom prevail. Lead them in the ways of justice so that the most vulnerable among us benefit from their actions. We ask these things trusting that you hear our prayer and that you are with us this evening and always. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Can I get a roll call, please, Bev?
Mayor Kavanaugh.
Here.
Vice Mayor Brown.
Here.
Councilmember DePorter.
Here.
Councilmember Yates.
Present.
Councilmember Hanson.
Here.
Councilmember Magazine.
Here.
And Councilmember Lachey.
Here.
Okay, before we get started, I have two things on the agenda that we're going to be changing. The first is that item number 7 is going to be taken off the agenda at the request of the staff. So regular item number 7 is not going to be heard tonight, so if anyone's here for that, that will be at a future time. We are also, at the request of Councilwoman Hanson, we are going to move consent agenda item number 3 to the regular agenda listing, and that would be, we will take that one first. But for now, we have a August Drowning Impact Awareness Month, and I'm going to read the proclamation. And we are wearing our little purple ribbons given to us by our fire department. Drowning Impact Awareness Month, August 2015. Whereas Drowning Impact Awareness Month will raise awareness that the number and impact of child drownings in Arizona affects everyone. And whereas the drowning incidents in Arizona take the lives of the equivalent of a classroom of children each year. And whereas the child drowning can happen to any family, regardless of education, race, or socioeconomic background. And whereas families can take simple steps to protect their children around water to avoid the tragedy of the unnecessary loss of life. And whereas water safety remains a priority for Arizona families, communities, and government. And whereas keeping children healthy and safe is the goal of the Fountain Hills Rural Metro Fire Department and other prevention institutions in Arizona. And whereas raising awareness will increase understanding and education of effective ways to prevent drowning, now therefore I, Linda M. Kavanaugh, Mayor of the Town of Fountain Hills, Arizona, do hereby proclaim the month of August 2015 as Drowning Impact Awareness Month in Fountain Hills. Thank you. Okay, economic development. Let's start off with that. This is my economic development report. Well, Maricopa Association of Governments Economic Development Committee met, and we were presented with information from John Lenio from CBRE, which stands for the Phoenix Commercial Real Estate Market. He had some tips for the state as well as municipalities and how to make yourself more attractive to businesses interested in relocating to Arizona. He covered some such topics as understanding labor market dynamics and stressed the importance of support from above. In that case, he means us. I thought it was interesting that all the tips are exactly what Scott Cooper, our EDC specialist, has been doing for our town. And also, if you remember, during the year, I spoke about an interactive map for municipalities to use for their EDC programs and for our business community. Now MAG has teamed up with Read On Arizona, an organization dedicated to improving reading skills for K to third grade through a Virginia G. Piper grant to create an interactive map of all the schools in the state that have K to third grades, and some preschools will be covered. The interactive map, when completed and online, will provide statistical data on everything from the dynamics of the neighborhoods to the test scores to better understand what makes a school a success. The next step, which I always ask about, is what will you do with the data? They do have an action plan to help the schools, but also to partner with other agencies who might assist with factors not under the control of the schools. For instance, if unemployment is viewed as a major factor in kids not being able to read, they would seek outside agency help. The map will be active in about 3 weeks so that parents, teachers, administrators, and residents can view all the statistical data about our schools and all those around the state. And that's my EDC report. Okay. Nancy Ordowski and Alice Brovan are not here today, but I do want to recognize them as retiring Strategic Planning Advisory Commissioners. I think, as everyone knows, we have many commissions, and all of our commissioners are volunteers, and they do give a lot of their free time to not only come to meetings, but also to do research on various topics, and they're always available to help with whatever the council asks them to do. So Nancy and Alice have worked for quite a while with the commission, and we do want to recognize them and thank them for their service. Both of them are out of town and could not be here today, but I wanted them to know that we do appreciate what they've done, and we appreciate all the commissioners.
Mayor.
Okay, Alan.
As you know, Councilman DePorter and I both have served as chairs of SPAC, and I just want to publicly thank both of them for their hard work and their contributions.
Okay, thanks. That's right, you did work with them for quite a while. Okay, and our next item is recognition of our members of the 4th of July Committee. All right, wait a minute, I got something to say about you first. Those of you who have been residents here for many years will remember the annual 4th of July fireworks in the park. It was to our greatest dismay when the town had to stop having the event because the very tall fireworks became a danger to the homes around the park. New technology has brought us spectacular low-level fireworks. So in 2014, a small committee made up of Phyllis Kern, Christine Colley, and Brian Zapotizny. Did I get that right? Thanks. Came to Town Hall and proposed bringing the fireworks back to town. This was a daunting task the first year. They needed seed money from the town and sponsors and volunteers to make the event happen. They joined the town in this endeavor, and the first 4th of July fireworks display in many years happened in Fountain Park. This past year, the team, which included, I'm going to read off their names, Phyllis Kern, Christine Colley, Denise Ricketts, Sam Coffey, Brian Zapotizny, Jody Knapp, and our staff, Rachel Goodwin, Grace Rodman, Grady Miller, myself, MCSO, and Rural Metro, surpassed last year's record for donations from the business community, our service providers, and individual residents, thus being able to provide a bigger and more spectacular event. We are here tonight to say a big thank you to the team, and we look forward to next year's Fourth at the Fountain. And if you will come up, we have a certificate to give you. Those who are here, I see Phyllis. Come on, team, come up here. Look at that, we have a photographer. Yes. And we have a photographer with us. Come on, let's go over here and we'll take a picture, and I have this certificate to give you. Okay? And thank you. We won't tell Bob you did that. Thank you so much. Okay, we can give them a nice round of applause. Now we have a presentation by the town, of the town's new website and app by Information Technology Administrator Mike Chickarone. Grady, did you want to say something first?
I just have a few words to say. I'm really excited by this. As you know, one of the best ways that we can reach our citizens and visitors from out of the area is through our website. And we underwent a major makeover. In fact, I would call this a reconstruction project, much like Saguaro is. We did this on the website, and it took quite a bit of planning and time to do this. In fact, I believe the time that we started was actually, there was a contract awarded last year, and we started the planning process, and really our IT administrator, Mike Chickarone, really took the leadership on this and really helped bring about a super website. And it's a website that really involved a lot of involvement from all of the departments. And so he's going to give you a presentation tonight on both that and also one of the add-ons, which is a mobile app that we have for both Droid and iPhone devices. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thank you, Grady. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The town approved a contract with Icon Enterprises last September to redesign the town's website. On March 5th of this year, we were able to launch that website. You may remember the old website. It was kind of hard to forget. It was cluttered. It was difficult to navigate and locate information. The main goal of our redesign was to obviously make things easier to find and to showcase the town. You know, we've got such a great town. The old website just didn't do it justice. So the site navigation is organized into 4 categories: your town, residents, business, and how do I. As you can see from the slide here, the menus are pretty extensive. There's a lot of items on each of them. This is your government, residents, and how do I. There are also 5 graphic icons that appear at the bottom of every page that gets users to the information that they seek the most. For example, the Agenda Center provides access to council agendas and commission agendas as well in one central location. If you remember the old website, each commission had their own page. It was very cumbersome to switch between them and download packets. This is so much easier. There's also the request tracker where citizens can submit feedback or report code violations, building permit violations. They can report graffiti or vandalism at town parks. Through the Notify Me section, citizens are able to sign up for notifications and receive those by email. There's over 30 different notification types that people can sign up for. So it's a lot different than where we used to be, where if you wanted information, you had to go get it. Now we're pushing it out to people. Do you want to know if a business or a contractor is licensed in Fountain Hills? You can do that through the website. You're able to look up businesses and check their license. Maybe you found a lost dog. You can use the tag number on the town-issued license, or the tag rather, plug in that number here and get the owner's phone number. You can contact them and return that pet quickly. You can complete electronic forms for things like permit inspections, volunteer application, or even public records requests. There's more forms to come. And this is just a couple of the features of our website. There's obviously a whole lot more to it, but I wanted to keep this short. Then, of course, the new My Fountain Hills mobile app, as Grady alluded to, for Android and iPhone smartphones. Maybe you don't check your email often. You can actually sign up for push notifications. As you can see here, you can get things as meeting agendas, emergency alerts. Maybe you want to know if there's a new job posting with the town. You can sign up for all of those. You can check event and meeting calendars. View employment opportunities, meeting agendas, news alerts, and complete forms online through the mobile app as well. Find contact information for elected officials and town staff. You can even stay connected with the town through its social media and tourism websites. And that's pretty much all I've got. So I appreciate the opportunity to showcase the website and the mobile app. I'm happy to answer any questions.
That's very impressive. I like that it doesn't have just a municipal look to it. It's very attractive as well, which,
We tried to, get away from the boring government.
yeah,
And
boring government. Did you say that?
try to make it more interesting and draw people in.
And thanks for including Android. Mhm. Any questions for Mike? Councilman Magazine.
Well, first, congratulations. I think this is fabulous, and it's a terrific way to interact with the public, which is good, but sometimes not so great. I'm kidding. Is the app available right now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to do it, and you know me, I'm technologically challenged, so I'll come see you privately.
Actually, I can pretty much answer that. Just search for My Fountain Hills in the either App Store or Google Play,
Oh, okay,
and you'll be able to find it.
okay, thank you.
Just look for the town logo.
Let us know if you get it by the end of the meeting.
Flip your phone open.
Turn it on.
Anything else for Mike? Who's running the camera while you're up here?
Nobody.
Ah, okay.
So give me a second to get in the back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Good job.
Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Nope, okay. Let's go to our consent agenda, and now we only have 5 items. Remember, leave off number 3. Can I get a motion to accept all 5 as written?
Mayor, so moved.
And second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, 7-0.
All right, thank you. Now, going to our regular agenda item, we're going to start with our number 3 that was pulled off. It's consideration of approving a contract with American Metering Services Incorporated, doing business as AMS Billing Services to implement the environmental fee adopted by the council on November 20th, 2014. Councilwoman Hanson?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just a little surprised to see that this was on the consent agenda. I think most of us remember the discussion when we approved this fee, and it was rather painstaking, to say the least. I think some of us that supported it did so not because we really wanted to, we felt it needed to be done. So it was hard to do, but it was done, and so we're moving forward. Even though there was a good article in the paper this week, kind of reiterating, why we have this fee and where it came from and what it will cover, it is the middle of summer, and I think it would be a good idea, since we are going to be imposing a fee on our residents, that we have the opportunity to have a regular presentation on the program, kind of reiterate, refresh everybody's minds, what we're being required to do, and that we really do need some assistance in paying for those things. But then go through the process of how they're going to be notified, what they can expect, how the billing will work, much like what was done with the trash issue, where people were kind of walked through the whole thing before it happened, rather than just approving this on the consent agenda and then all of a sudden our residents being notified that, oh, by the way, you're going to be getting a bill from us. So I would like to move to table this to a future date. There may be some other council people that might have a few questions about the agreement. I understand Craig is out of the office, and he was the one kind of going through this exercise, so he wouldn't be available to answer any questions right now. So I just thought it would be a good idea to maybe delay this until we have more time and maybe have a better outreach and presentation to the public before moving forward.
Okay.
I'll second that
your
motion.
I would also like to
Vice
weigh
Mayor Brown?
weigh in on this. I also called Grady in with concern about this being on the consent agenda and was asking, why it was, and I understand everything that we've done and why we had it on the consent agenda. And I so totally agree with Councilmember Hanson that we need to go ahead and take it off of the consent agenda and have some workshops that educate the citizens of Fountain Hills. And I'd like to go one step further, Grady, I'd like to try to get this on a work study agenda for not only the council, but also so when we're with the people in the public, we can actually answer their questions as quickly as they ask them.
I think that's very fair and reasonable. We heard from a couple council members today, and we will definitely be doing that. I had mentioned I didn't have a chance to talk to Councilwoman Hanson today, but when Councilmember Leger asked about this, and also you as well, Councilmember Brown, we did talk about the need for some public outreach, and the plan all along has been to have a couple open houses prior to citizens receiving the information in the mail. As part of this, the billing company will send out some notification that this is going to be happening, but I thought it was important to help people understand not only that this is happening, but the town officially doing it, and then also at those open houses, show where all that money will be, that's generated, how much will be generated, and what will be, how that money will be utilized. Because I think that's part of the equation, that even though they get a bill, they're not really sure, oh, it's for the environment, but they really need to know what that $36 a year is going to pay for. So it's fair and reasonable, and I do apologize. We will do that, and we will come back to a council both with a study session, and then we'll also do a full presentation to council for action on this particular item. So, thank you.
Councilman Magazine?
Councilman Brown, I'm wondering if you're suggesting that a work study be confined just to the environmental fee, or could it be broadened to address fees in general?
I'm just recommending that I would like to see this on a work study agenda, and I'm not going to dictate further than that, but I certainly would like to see this on an agenda so we can discuss it.
I'd like to suggest, if the maker of the motion is willing, that we broaden the agenda for a work study to address fees in general, including the environmental fee. Pardon me? Yeah.
Well, we actually
I
have,
did make
I
the
think
motion.
we actually have
Dennis
an
made
amendment.
a,
Was it a
amendment to your
amendment?
motion.
No, it was not an amendment to the motion. We've got an amendment in a second. I was just making a comment to Grady that I would like to see this on a work study session. I wasn't trying to change the motion at all.
Okay, so you're just directing to staff?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I guess I'd like to just chime in and say I would prefer that this be a standalone item, something that's already been approved and that we're explaining further, rather than kind of, I feel like, to me, like it would be bombarding the residents, like saying, ooh, we got this fee, now let's look at doing some other fees too. I mean, let's just deal with the one that we have at hand and then go forward. If we want to have another work study on other fees, that would be my preference.
Yes.
Councilman Magazine, are you proposing an amendment, or are you just?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. Okay, then I have a motion and a second. And did we get any one who wanted to speak on this after I moved it?
No, Mayor, no
No.
speakers.
Okay.
Madam Mayor? I'm sorry.
Go
So
ahead, Councilman
as a matter of
Yates.
parliamentary procedure, how would this interact? The motion is just to have a presentation. It's been asked to have a work study, which I think that'd be better, but that's not an amendment to the motion. So we don't need we're fine.
The
Thank
main
you.
motion was to table
Yeah.
anyway.
Basically to table it.
Awesome.
All
Thank you.
right, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, 7-0.
Okay. Number 8, consideration of Resolution 2015-41, adopting the Town of Fountain Hills Capital Asset Policy. Grady?
Mayor and council, good organizations have policies in place that deal with their financial house to make sure their house is in order. Since our finance director, Craig Rudolphi's been here, he's been really doing a great job of identifying where we have maybe some potential weaknesses or areas that need to be beefed up. And one of the areas that he's brought to our attention is our capital asset policy, the need for one. The Governmental Finance Officers Association has basically been a big proponent of organizations or cities that do not have these to actually adopt these. And basically, your capital assets are all the items that are inventoried that have some value. And so, whereas we keep track of money, very closely, and we've also been inventorying all of our assets, this is an updated policy that I think is very important for the council to recognize, that this is part of our arsenal of controls to give citizens some satisfaction that we're watching the store and we're making sure that we're taking good care of our assets and we're good stewards of taxpayer money. So before you is this policy, and it's very complicated. As you went through, you probably saw it was multiple pages and such. But I can give you assurances that it's really a top flight policy that is basically recommended by the Government Finance Officers Association. Also, this is something that our auditors will be looking for as something that's affirmative from the part of the council, showing that this is important to the organization. I have with us tonight our town accountant, Beata Bogdan, here to answer any questions that you may have specifically about the policy.
All right. Councilman Yates?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. I think this is tremendous, being in real estate. I'm very aware of this concept. My only question on the municipal side, whoever wants to chime in, once we depreciate the asset, if there's still economic life, are we forced into selling it? And I know there was several spots in there that it's at the discretion of the department director. And I know usually when it comes to especially vehicles, when safety's involved, by all means, I want to say get rid of the asset. But, if a truck only has 60,000 miles on it and we've depreciated over 6 years based on our mileage, I don't want to be forced into we have to get rid of it and then take on new debt just because the asset's been depreciated. As you know, there's more economic life to that. So I just wanted to make sure that there's some flexibility and so technology, by all means, get rid of it. It's
My understanding is that this policy gives us the flexibility to maintain that asset. So it may really not have a book value at that point, but it certainly has a useful value to the organization if we're finding that the maintenance isn't killing the town to maintain that asset. So my understanding is the policy does give us the flexibility to go ahead and dispose of the property or asset. And it also outlines how we do that properly, how we salvage, assets and how that's done properly, and also the record keeping for that. So it's a good question, and I think that's how we would handle that.
and you kind of answered it, but I'm saying in the event you do depreciate it, we're not forced to get rid of it. We
No.
can, at the discretion of the director, maintain it, keep it.
Absolutely.
Because okay.
We've had a number of cases where we've had some large equipment over in Fleet that really under normal circumstances, may have been disposed of, but it still had a useful life and was still productive for the town. So we decided to keep the asset.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Do you have any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Any other council discussion? All right, then I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, so moved.
And a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, 7-0.
All right, at this time, I'm going to open public hearing. And we have two separate motions will be required for this, just so the council knows. And if the public wants to submit speaker cards, they would have to do it for items 9 through 12. And I will start with number 9, public hearing to receive comment on two proposed special use permits to allow Verizon Wireless to install a 40-foot tall faux saguaro cellular antenna tower within 300 feet of residential property, and to allow the installation of associated ground equipment at 16000 East Fire Rock Country Club Drive, located in the OSR zoning district, number SU 2015-10. And number 11 is public hearing to receive comments on two proposed special use permits to allow Verizon Wireless to install a 40-foot tall faux saguaro cellular antenna tower within 300 feet of residential property, and to allow the installation of associated ground equipment at 16000 East Fire Rock Country Club Drive, located in the OSR zoning district, number SU 2015-11. Grady?
Yes, Senior Planner Bob Rogers is here tonight and will be giving the staff report on these items. I think we're having a little technical difficulty right now.
You may or may not have a slideshow with us. But
Slideshow.
get it directly to the Z drive. Maybe.
Oh, 10 times over.
We go without it? All right. This application is for two separate 40-foot tall faux saguaro cell towers. Both towers require two special use permits each. One each for the height, because they're in excess of 30 feet, which is the upper limit in the zoning district, and one each for their proximity to the residential zoning area, or residential areas, which are within 300 feet. The two faux saguaros are located north of the Fire Rock Golf Club parking lot and are southwest of the 9th green. I'm hoping you have the slideshow on your computers, because
Yes, we do.
we're not getting them here. Slide number 3 would show you a blow-up. It shows the location in better detail. And going to slide 4, the ground equipment will be nearer the club parking lot for accessibility. The towers will be approximately 230 feet up the hillside from the equipment. The two towers will be using the same design as other previously approved faux saguaros in town. Go to slide 5. These are the photo sims. The sims on the left are the befores, and the sims on the right are the afters. As you can see, if you can see, unless you're right up close to the saguaros, you won't be able to tell that they're cell towers. Even then, maybe not. Some of them are done very well. Planning and Zoning Commission forwarded a recommendation to approve these special use permits, and staff also recommends approval of the special use permits, subject to the stipulations in the staff report. And the applicants are present if you have any questions.
All
I
right.
apologize for the slideshow.
Thank you, Bob. Questions from council? Vice Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Rogers, do we have anything in our ordinance that says that when cell phone towers are obsolete, that within 90 days of being discontinued in use, they need to be removed? Or within 100, or X number of days?
No, we don't have anything in our ordinance that says that. The last one that was decommissioned that I know of was the large tower that's down in the, what's the name of that park? Down there by the dog park, the big tower. They just removed their arrays from that. That was an AT&T tower.
Did they remove the entire tower?
No, the finance director decided that we could possibly rent it out in the future to another carrier. So he told them to get their arrays out and their ground equipment, but leave the tower.
Councilmember Brown, we do have, basically, when they are on like town property, that we have agreements with them though. And basically, the agreements stipulate that they have to remove the infrastructure for those towers. This particular case that Mr. Rogers talking about, we basically negotiated for them to remove. They just wanted to leave the entire, fixture there, and we require them to get it down to that level, because we thought there could potentially be another carrier that wanted that site.
Well, one day in the future, I perceive that there will be no need for cell towers. There will be new technology that will quickly overrun the towers, and I would certainly hate to see 13 fake palm trees in our town rusting to the ground. And I would certainly, if there's any way legally to stipulate in the ordinance or wherever we need to go with it, that X number of days after discontinuing the use of, they would be required to remove the tower. I think that would be something we should look at.
Could certainly start adding that as a standard stipulation to these special use permits.
If you see any value in that, I would like to see that happen.
Did you want to go through the slides again, or, you just,
Do you want me to?
no,
No,
no, okay. As they put it up
Finally got
there, I
it to
thought
work.
you wanted to see it. Okay, so, any other council questions for Bob or for the applicant? And then I think we have a speaker. Speaker? Oh, no, we don't, okay. Any other questions for Bob or for the applicant? Okay, if not, then I will close the public hearing. And we'll start with the first one, consideration of two proposed special use permits as presented for number SU 2015-10. Any further council discussion? If not, can I have a motion?
certainly, Mayor.
Thank you.
Move to approve the 4 proposed special use permits to allow Verizon Wireless to install 2 40-foot tall saguaro cactus antennas at 1600 East Spire Rock Country Club Drive, subject to the stipulations in the staff report. And I would also like to add to that the special use permit to have some verbiage of some sort that within 90 days of discontinuing the use of it, the tower be removed.
Mayor, second.
All right. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, 7-0.
All right, thank you. Now we have consideration of two proposed special use permits as just presented for SU 2015-11. Any further discussion?
Madam Mayor, Madam Mayor, just for clarification, the zoning ordinance does contain a provision on this, and it happens to be 90 days. So
Wow.
you're spot
You
on.
hit it.
Maybe I did read
Spot
that
on.
sometime or another.
Nice going.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Now we will have one staff report for items 13 and 14, and I will open the public hearing. To receive comments on a proposed special use permit to allow EPCOR to install a 42-foot tall monopalm radio communication antenna at 10840 East Indian Wells Drive, the well number 11 site located in the R18 RUPD zoning district. Bob, again, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. This application is for a 42-foot tall monopalm radio tower. The tower is required to get the special use permit due to its height above 30 feet, which is the zoning district's limit, as well as its proximity to the residential area, which it's within. The monopalm will be located east of the Saguaro Boulevard, King Street Boulevard intersection and just south of the Desert Canyon Golf Course 6th fairway. It's kind of between the 6th and 7th fairways. This is a blow-up showing the location in better detail. The location is already fenced off, as it is an existing well site. The fence is being replaced with a block wall. Top left picture is the general site plan. The bottom left shows a blow-up of the proposed enclosure, as well as the necessary property line adjustment, which will allow for the 100% fall-down requirement to be met. The lot line adjustment is not part of this application. It will be submitted in the near future. The picture at the right shows the monopalm elevation with the radio antenna. It's much smaller than the standard arrays you'll see on a cell tower. This is just a radio antenna for radio communications. Also not shown but proposed are 3 additional 25-foot tall palm trees to be installed nearby, either inside the enclosure or just outside, but still near the monopalm. The locations of those palms haven't been finally determined yet, but they will be within 100 feet of the monopalm. Planning and Zoning Commission forwarded recommendation to approve. Staff also forwarded recommendation to approve, all subject to the stipulations of the staff report. Thank you.
Are the applicants present?
Tyson,
Okay.
yeah, there.
So, questions from counsel for Bob or for the applicant? Councilman Magazine.
For the applicant, please. Welcome. Thank you very much. Let me just, let me say that it seems like every meeting, almost every meeting, we're getting requests for special use permits for these. And I just have a very simple question. What if we turned it down? What's the impact?
Well, the impact is that we did a radio survey from our site where the radio actually talks to, that gives us the elevation of the tank level, that then tells the well whether it gets to turn on or off.
Let me stop you. I'm not an engineer, so
Okay.
you're way over my head already. So
Sorry.
if you-
In order for, the reason it's there in the first place, it just has to talk to the water system to let the well turn on and turn off. If we weren't able to go 40 feet tall, we would not be able to communicate to that other piece of equipment that allowed this to happen. The other alternatives that are not very reliable would involve phone lines, which was the way it was done for many years, but the phone line service is not a very reliable service for us to actually use. So this is one type of service that we are very comfortable with. It has a high reliability for the type of water service that we have, and that's why we're proposing this.
What do you do today?
Today, the well has not been in service for some time. It has a 20-foot tall antenna that ended up going to a different location, and it was the same technology radio type antenna. But with some of the changes that are happening where we need to go up to the 40 feet, which is the 42-foot palm type antenna is what we're proposing.
And you're requesting today 2 special use permits? Is that
My
correct?
understanding is we're
We have
just requesting one.
One.
Yes, sir.
What do you think might happen in the future? Will you be coming back for more?
We, at this particular time, we're not anticipating a need for additional, for additional towers within that particular area. This is kind of a sunken area in comparison with some of our other systems, but this is just one of these wells that we need to bring on to increase the reliability of the water system. I don't know if in the future we will never do this again, but we definitely have a significant need to do it at this particular site.
You've said twice now, this particular site. What about other sites in town?
As far as other sites at town, we don't have any plans that I'm aware of that we are planning to put in an antenna that has, that's over, the type of, that's over 30 feet. At this stage, we have a very significant, a very specific goal to make this particular well site back into the system to add reliable water.
I don't mean to keep peppering you, but you said over 30 feet. What about under 30 feet?
At this stage, the antenna that we have at one of our other areas is somewhere in that neighborhood below 30 feet. I just don't anticipate that we are going to be upgrading those particular to anything higher than what they are. We do have plans, and we have within our system improved the existing antenna mast, but it's the same configuration, and they have not needed to increase them. It's just particular to this well 11 site that's between the two fairways at the golf course.
Thank you.
And just for the record, could you state your name and your position with
Oh, I
EPCOR?
apologize. I'm Kevin Conway. I'm a project manager with EPCO Water that's working as Chaparral City Water Company.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions for Bob? Okay, if not, and no speaker cards?
No speaker cards.
Okay, and I will close public hearing. Consideration of the proposed special use permit as just presented. Any further council discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Mayor, 7-0.
Thank you, Bob. Now we will have one staff report for item 15 and 16, and with that, I will open that public hearing.
For a change of pace, let's talk about a cell tower.
This is easy, I'll do this.
Public hearing to receive comments on proposed special use permit to allow T-Mobile to install a 65-foot tall faux palm tree cellular antenna array with attendant ground equipment at 16701 East Laser Drive, located in the Industrial 1 zoning district. Bob?
Thank you, Mayor. As you said, this is an application for a 65-foot tall monopalm cell tower. The tower is required to get the special use permit due to its height being in excess of the 40-foot height limit of the Industrial 1 zoning district. Monopalm will be located in the Vans Storage RV parking lot. It's just south of Laser Drive. This is a blow-up showing the location of the walled enclosure for the ground equipment and the tower in better detail. This location complies with the 100% fall-down requirement. The top picture shows the site plan with the distances to the property lines. The bottom left shows the enclosure with the 3 additional real palm trees next to it. And the bottom right is the monopalm elevations. The 65-foot tall to the top of the fronds is the measurement. The Sims on the left are the befores, and the Sims on the right are the after, showing the palm tree. Sort of. The tree design is the same as previously approved at the Alamo Saloon and the Colony Drive mini storage locations, and it's also the same design as the EPCOR monopalm that you just approved. This, however, is a cell tower, so it will have the larger arrays. Planning and Zoning Commission forwarded a recommendation to approve the special use permit. The staff also forwarded a recommendation to approve, subject to stipulations in the staff report. Thank you. And the applications are the applicants are present.
How tall are the real ones?
The
You
real,
said the real ones, there's real palms being planted around the...
yeah, I think there was, one was, there were 3 25-footers? 135, and
225 and 135.
for about half the height, yeah.
Okay. All right, questions? Councilman Yates?
Thank you. Bob, down on Shea and the Beeline, that one, we kind of used it as a flagpole for a while. How tall is that one?
Oh, boy.
Oh,
That's
boy.
pretty tall, you know?
Tall.
It's bigger than 65 though, right?
Oh, yeah. That's as tall as those high tension lines.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's closer to 80.
Councilman Leger?
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm going to request a few minutes and patience because I would like to go through, not all 8, but a couple of the conditions and stipulations for administering a special use permit. And I'm particularly interested in this site due to the height of this particular faux palm. Bob, I'm not sure if you have the conditions that you can put up on the screen there, and they're in our packet.
I don't have the staff report now.
Okay, I have it in front of me, so I can go through it. You've done this a number of times, so I'm sure you're fine with it. Condition A talks about height of the proposed tower in terms of imposing on the zoning district. We know in that zoning district that where Vans is, it's 40 feet. But across from Vans, across the alley, and probably the majority of the height in that area, it's fair to say, is 25 feet. Is that correct?
The south side of Laser, once you get past Van, is
Yeah,
all 25.
right next to it's 25 feet. So when we talk about a variance between the height of this pole and the imposing structures in that environment, we're talking about a difference of 40 feet, not necessarily 25 feet, which to me is significant. So I just wanted to point that out. The second question I had in that regard is that we have neighbors which are outside the 300-foot buffer, which is what the ordinance requires, and I appreciate the fact that staff did not provide them any notices because our ordinance says you don't have to do it without outside of 300 feet. Do you have the slide there, the topographical slide there that shows the proximity of those homes to this proposed site? Could you point out where the homes are along Saguaro Boulevard? I guess those would be the
Thinking
closest.
the closest ones are probably these condominiums.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So in your professional opinion, from that distance, which is just slightly outside of 300 feet, maybe a little further, would there be a visual impact for those folks looking at a space right now that is open space to a certain extent visually? Yeah, would they be impacted visually from that
300
distance?
feet falls just short of the Saguaro
Yeah.
Boulevard right-of-way.
So
Well,
if they
yeah.
were probably 25 feet closer, there's a possibility that they would have received a notice regarding a special permit.
They probably would have had to be about 50 feet closer, but yeah.
Very good. Okay, so that may explain why we haven't had any community input from those folks. But that's a different story. But your professional opinion, I mean, I would think there's going to be a visual impact from that distance.
If you mean, will they be able to see it? Yes.
Yes, okay, very good. So I question the fact that that condition has been met with respect to our ordinances. Let me just go on very quickly to, well, I've talked about proximity, so forth and so on. Could you go back to the Vans storage slide, please? Okay, very nice. Now, you've got that yellow dot there, and what's surrounding that yellow dot?
All these things?
Yeah.
Those are all RV storage.
Okay. So it's highly unlikely that that tower would fall down. But in the event that it did, it would put consumers at risk that their vehicles probably being,
Most likely.
yeah, crushed, not to be too dramatic about that. Okay. One of the other conditions is, could you show me the slide that has, I think it's in our packet, and I think the mayor asked this question as well. Could you show me the slide that shows the monopalm and the foliage that is there to kind of camouflage or deaden the impact of it?
This is the palm side view. It doesn't really show up very well. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about where you have the palm and the 3 additional palms next to it. It's in our packet.
It's this one. palm, the monopalm.
Well, that's a topographical view. Do you have a?
I think it's slide Z4 on the drawing from T-Mobile.
Oh, their slideshow?
Yes.
No, I don't have that one up here. That was the one that was up there on your
Yeah,
counter?
yeah.
I can pull that one up if you're done with this slide.
I would like you to pull that up, please. Thank you, Mayor, for the time. I'll go through this as quickly as I can.
And I haven't actually gone through their slideshow, so you may want the applicant to come up and answer the question.
Well, if council members have that in front of them, I guess my point would be a pitch is worth 1,000 words. And the condition is to, for a special use permit, the condition is to successfully provide tree coverage and foliage to minimize the visual impact or effect. And from my perspective, when you look at that slide, that goal is not met in terms of providing a special use permit. And I'm not questioning your judgment or your professional opinion, but I think it's clear if you look at that slide. And that's the concern that residents are starting to have with these palm monopalms. The saguaros have a tendency to blend more into the environment. If there's anything I've ever passed as a council member, I regret the fact that I approved the monopalm behind the Alamo. I mean, it basically looks like this huge pole with some fig leaves sticking out of the top of it. And they've just recently retrofitted that, if anyone's seen, and added some, what did they add to it?
Well, it began with 4-foot arrays, and they put in 8-foot arrays.
Yeah, and now it just looks like a big piece of equipment up there in the sky. Is the applicant present? Because I had a few questions for the
Yes.
applicant. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Could you state your name?
Good evening, Mayor Kavanagh, members of the council. Declan Murphy is my name, representing T-Mobile. My address is 1525
What city you live in?
Scottsdale.
Very good.
It's fine.
And you represent T-Mobile. Do you have your own company that does these sites? Is that?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mayor Kavanagh, Councilmember Leger. Yes, I work for a company called Cold Creek Consulting, and I've been exclusively working on wireless in the state of Arizona for
Okay.
about 15 years.
Very good.
So,
I just have a couple quick questions.
Sure.
for you. I noticed in your letter, which was in the staff report, that you mentioned that there's a gap in coverage for T-Mobile, and that gap was attributed to the fact that you have removed your technology from a flagpole or a post that was on Shea Boulevard near 87. Could you address that, the rationale for why that was removed, which created this gap in
Sure.
coverage?
Sure. So, really, the reason we're here tonight discussing this particular site is the flagpole at the entrance that we just was brought up earlier. When you get off SR 87 and you come onto Shea Boulevard, that has been removed. So T-Mobile currently has a site there. So with that site being removed, it creates a huge gap in T-Mobile's network.
Mm-hmm.
So that particular site is quite tall, and it serves quite a bit of SR 87, but it also serves a good portion of Fountain Hills.
Yeah.
So when T-Mobile is forced with losing a site, it's a big deal because customers that have coverage now, if that coverage goes away under their FCC licensing, emergency services obligations, all that kind of thing, it's a really big deal when a site gets removed. It doesn't happen very often. So with that, we had to look and see, well, where can we propose an alternative site? So naturally, we're looking at, properties that are far removed from residential. Obviously, we need a willing landlord. The van storage is an industrial zone. Most municipal ordinances would encourage you to put a site like this in an industrial zone, which is the case here. So basically, we're mimicking the site that was recently approved on Colony Drive at the Fountain Hills mini storage. So the design is very similar. It's actually similar. It's the same as that particular site. But to address a few of your other questions, I guess, and valid they are, and I think you were trying to pull up the photo sim and your concern about those neighbors to the south, because I've driven down there. When we first proposed van storage site, I drove down there, And I don't know if you can see it on the aerial, but there's quite a few tall buildings, industrial commercial type, between vans and those homes. So if you're in your front yard, your backyard, or in that home, or looking out one of the windows because they're single story, you really won't have a very, you actually won't have a very good, you might see the monopalm given the distance. I mean, the thing is that these are not perfect. They don't look like a live palm tree, but they do serve a purpose, is that people see some kind of a palm tree in the distance. So for that, I think our photosim, one of the photosim views was taken from those residences, in the front of those residences. So with that, and obviously we're proposing live foliage, and I would argue that we can put taller palm trees there, but all you do then is basically draw attention to the actual monopalm. I mean, if you want taller palm trees, that's not a problem. But the way, and obviously we do a lot of palm trees throughout the state, but I would argue that putting larger, taller live palms would actually create more notice, or actually make the monopalm itself more prominent. And then in addition to that, we don't. I mean, we obviously, it's a site that we need. It's not a case of build it, they will come. We're actually, really having to, in time is of the essence, obviously, to be able to, when the flagpole site goes away, to be able to actually not have any time period where T-Mobile doesn't provide any service.
I understand that.
Yeah.
You've answered my question. Just the part of the question you didn't answer is that flagpole on town property or someone else's property? I'm trying to understand why you've lost that ability to utilize that pole.
Yes, Councilmember Leger, as far as I know, that property is being redeveloped. So T-Mobile, and T-Mobile actually doesn't, just a long story, but all of these wireless carriers nowadays don't really own real estate anymore. They don't own their towers for the most part.
Sure.
What is happening is you have 3 or 4 national tower companies that pretty much own all the assets now. And so this particular, the flagpole is a lease that T-Mobile has with a company called Crown Castle.
Sure.
So as far as that goes, they've given T-Mobile notice that flagpole is going away.
Sure.
So.
And I'm taking a lot of time here, so I'd like to move along because I have a few more questions.
Sure.
So you've lost that site, so there's a gap. So now we're placing this in the industrial center, and I take exception to the fact that it won't be visible because it's just outside of 300 feet, and the buildings in that area are frankly rather low, but that's neither here nor there. I'm questioning our own procedure as a council member for special use, and I don't think, based on what I'm saying, that it meets that particular condition and criteria, and we could probably go back and forth to that all evening. So I just have one more question for you, and
Sure.
then there's a comment I want to make, and I'll be done, Mayor.
Sure.
Thank you. Have you looked at some alternative sites, because our condition asks for you to do that?
Sure.
Have you looked at an alternative site close to that particular area where you could engage technology that would be less obtrusive than a 65-foot monopalm?
Sure. Typically, and this is true and we work for all of the carriers, not just T-Mobile, but typically our first protocol is usually utility poles, because they're the fastest, they're the easiest to do. Every carrier has a relationship with SRP or APS. That's always the first port of call, really. Then you're looking at co-location on existing wireless sites would be the second. The other option we looked at was possibly placing a saguaro near where the AT&T saguaros are, just a little bit northeast.
Absolutely.
And we looked at that, which is probably a viable location, although we didn't pursue it because simply the max height we would get there would be 30 foot to the top of the saguaro, which means our center of antenna would be somewhere in the 25-foot range. And I have these propagation maps.
Yeah, I've seen those. So you've answered my question. You've looked at an alternative
Sure.
site on the hillside and
Sure.
in the ridge, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much.
And if I could just say, just to address, I mean, as far as the process, you mentioned you're looking at your particular process. It doesn't matter the municipality. You're always encouraged to look at industrial properties. I'm not saying for a second that you can hide a 65-foot structure, because you cannot hide a 65-foot structure.
Well, I understand that, but my concern is that it's a 65-foot structure in an area where the buildings are 25 feet and sticks out like a sore thumb, and I think there is an alternative site, and I think that alternative site is on that ridge, that hillside, which will give you about an additional 30 feet in elevation, and you could probably toss in a saguaro cactus that's 35 or 35 feet. But anyhow, thank you very much for answering the question.
Sure.
And I'd like to address the council just very briefly. And this is a situation where there were residents just outside the boundary, so we didn't receive a lot of feedback. What I did, you can sit down, sir, you're okay.
Sure.
I have plenty more questions for you. I did receive 2 phone calls. And the phone calls I received were somewhat interesting. Both gentlemen reminded me that some time ago, there was a request for special use permit at Vans, which was denied by council. And of course, these residents didn't want this there, so I did some due diligence, and Bob pointed me in the right direction. And what I discovered was this, that I know it was a while ago, but nothing has really changed in terms of what was proposed then and what's being proposed now, other than there's some fig leaves at the top of this structure. On May 4th, 2000, the council, if we recall who was on the council at that point in time, we don't need to go there, that particular council denied the special use permit. Okay? Then they were asked to reconsider the special use permit, and on May 18, 2000, they basically said, we'll reconsider the special use permit. Then they created another meeting on June 15, 2000, and they had a very extensive conversation. I have pages of minutes here. It was quite a colorful conversation, at which time they unanimously stipulated that they preferred the applicant to locate the the saguaro cactus, so it would be less obtrusive on that ridge. And when you look at the outcome of that meeting, that's what happened and that's what occurred. So these residents who had this history were dead on, where a previous council unanimously did not provide a special use permit for some of the reasons which I kind of went through. So basically, long story short, I'm leaning towards suggesting that we deny the permit and suggest that you look at an alternative site, and that alternative site was the one that you mentioned. And thank you.
Okay, I'll let the applicant come in. And,
Mayor Kavanagh, members of the council, if I could just address that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Quickly. 15 years ago, or sorry, 2000, which is 15 years ago, is night and day in this industry. The technology change is just, you saw the phones that we were using 15 years ago. You see the phone, the technology we have today. Today, a flagpole, such as we have at Shea in 87, is obsolete because you cannot get the radios you need near the antennas now for LTE and 4G. So that 50 years is a huge, huge difference in the technology that we have to deploy. The other point I would try and make is that we're not looking for a site for the sake of looking for a site. Once that flagpole goes away, T-Mobile has a genuine gap in coverage in Fountain Hills. And I would argue that that flagpole going away is a good thing because it's not the most aesthetically pleasing thing you're greeted with when you come into Fountain Hills. And the other point I would like to make is that, citizens of Fountain Hills, everybody has a smartphone. I mean, the technology is just, the appetite for this technology is not waning. You have smartphones for social media, for medical monitoring. You've now got your vehicle, your car, your truck connected to the network. T-Mobile's network is a GSM network, and it's worth noting that Fountain Hills gets a lot of visitors, not just national visitors, but international visitors. T-Mobile's network is a GSM network, which means a lot of international visitors would be roaming on T-Mobile's network while in Fountain Hills. So there's a huge benefit to T-Mobile providing coverage in Fountain Hills. And for that coverage to be affected or go away does have an economic impact. And the other point I would try to make is that this body just approved a similar monopom at Colony Drive at the Fountain Hills mini storage. So I'm not sure what has changed in that space of time, but if it was appropriate there, which is as close to residential, surely on an industrial property it's appropriate because any municipality will steer you towards their industrial properties to place this kind of site. So I thank you for your time, and
I just have two questions. The first is, do you have any idea how many customers will be serviced by this?
I don't have data,
But
and to be honest, Mayor Cavanagh, they usually are reluctant to provide that kind of, when we do ask the question, which is very helpful for our purposes, but there's obviously a confidentiality with competition and so forth. And T-Mobile, I don't know if you guys are aware, I don't know if any of your T-Mobile customers, but T-Mobile is the one carrier that is really adding customers at a faster rate than anybody else, simply because they now offer international roaming. They have a flat price for data. It's just sitting really well with consumers. So T-Mobile is at a stage where they just are having difficulty with capacity anyhow. So to lose a critical site such as we're losing is a big deal. If we could do a Saguaro, I can honestly say we would be doing a Saguaro, because, Saguaros we do quite a few of, but that difference in height of 30 feet would totally, probably, the coverage on E7 would go away, and as evidence in those yellow circles, that's the difference between a Saguaro and what we're proposing as a monopalm. Now, I'm not saying for a minute this site won't be visible, but I can tell you, and you've probably seen them yourself, if you do a proper palm tree, and there's some bad examples out there, but if you do a proper palm tree and you do the correct fronds and you do it right, most people will drive by and out of their peripheral, they'll see a palm tree maybe, but the majority of people will not recognize this palm tree when they drive by this property. And I've seen that, you can put that to work yourself when you're driving by the next one if you do notice one.
I just have one other question about the pictures that you provided us. Do you have them there, or I don't think we have them.
They were on the slide. They were on the slide, and they were grouped.
Yeah, the one that's.
Bob, the one that you provided that had line of sight, but the 2 points that you picked, it wasn't this one.
I wanted the one that is the view of what the neighbors would see. Which one is that?
This one? Yeah.
Is that it?
This one right here.
That's the entrance to Saguaro, isn't it?
This is the entrance, it looks like, to Vans on the bottom right.
The top one's the entrance to Vans. The bottom one, based on the map you provided, is if you were to turn north
Right. That's the
or south on Saguaro, that would be that view.
correct.
Can you bring that one up a little, move it up so. Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. So the neighbors are which way from that?
To the left of the
To the
slide, I
left?
take it? Yeah.
But further down. I'm sorry.
Further down.
That's actually that's actually closer to the palm tree than what the neighbors see.
Uh-huh.
So from the home, let's say from the front of those homes, it's further back slightly.
Behind the trees and then
Right.
further down.
Exactly. And then you have
Okay.
buildings here, which are quite tall. I mean, they're maybe 20, 25 feet.
Okay, I was
which-
just trying to get the perspective
Right.
of where it is. Okay, any other, Councilman Yates?
As modern technology would have, Google does this wonderful thing, and you can get a line of sight from the street. And although I appreciate what everyone's saying, the monopalms that we approved were 42 feet, 2 feet above what the area dictated. This is 65 feet, 25 feet above kind of minimum, and that's kind of the fear there. But I'm very practical. It's an industrial area, so I'm with you. But when you pull up line of sight, and I'm literally sitting as if I were on the the east side of Saguaro, the Palo Verdes and the medium provide more obstruction, as well as the Saguaros on the west side of the street, more obstruction than this would 350 feet away. Although I appreciate what everyone says, but the reality is, if I lived in the home and what I'm looking at right now, I'm in my home looking across the street, there's way more obstructing my view than where this would line up 350 feet. To Vice Mayor Brown's point, where do you see technology going that 65 feet? Granted, you said you went from 100 feet to now 65 feet, and I think everybody would feel more comfortable if you could do a 40, 45 feet, but having said that, I'm still with you, because the practical point is it's not going to obstruct any worse anyone's view than what they already have there.
Sure.
But talk to us about technology, why 65 instead of 42?
Sure, Mayor Kavanagh, Councilmember Yates. Simply put, if we were to reduce this site to 42 feet, we need another site. So it would be before this body for another 40-foot monopomp, probably to make up the gap in coverage, simply put. And, you know, I understand, I mean, Councilmember Brown's concern there. And, you know, what we're seeing as an industry, though, is that the appetite for towers is only growing. Unless that this technology goes satellite, which I don't see in the foreseeable future, the growth that's going on in this industry is crazy. So I see more towers in the future, to be honest, than any time. I mean, I don't see any let up in the appetite for because simply put, you know, the more uses, you know, you have wireless technology now being used for your home monitoring, vehicles being connected, medical monitoring, I mean, and the list goes on. So these smartphones are just being, I mean, the uses are endless. So, you know, everybody pretty much, you know, has a smartphone and they want to be able to use it. Bottom line, you have most houses, every kid has probably a tablet that's connected to it. It's just, the appetite is just endless. So really all we're doing is trying to meet consumer demand. It's not like, again, we're not building it for the sake of it or build it, they will come type of approach. We're actually replacing a site that's already there and trying to not lose coverage that serves businesses and visitors and residents of Fountain Hills, you know.
Vice Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. So you did touch on the fact that we could have 2 sites opposed to 1 and have the same coverage. And I have to agree with the council members that have brought it to the point that, you know, we have an ordinance that says 40 feet, and 42, 44 is one thing. 65 is 4 times higher than the buildings that are in van storage right now, 4.3 if you want to get technical with it. And that's considerably higher than anything else in the area. Is there any way we could talk to you about really looking at doing 2 sites opposed to 1 and trying to stay within the 40-foot height limit?
Vice Mayor Brown, it's a valid concern. I mean, you know, I say to do 2 sites because that would be the solution. But what I don't know is there another property out there that we're willing to lease space? I mean, a mini storage such as this with the fall zone, ideal situation, ideal scenario, industrial zone, etc. You know, we can make it work here. But if you had to try and find another commercial property whereby you were taking up this kind of space and you needed that fall zone, I don't think there's any property in the area that would meet that criteria. So 65 is actually the standard height really for a tower such as this. And like I said, that's what we have at Colony Drive now. That's what was approved here a few months ago. That's kind of the standard for a monopomp. As a municipality, you're faced with the challenge, do we agree to more towers or do we allow a tower such as this? It's kind of a, you know, it's also, and just if I could add to that, you know, a monopomp is a single carrier site. You know, the other dilemma municipalities face is that, do I approve a steel monopole where you can get 3 or 4 carriers on the same pole? Or, you know, which obviously wouldn't be as aesthetically pleasing, or, you know, do I approve monopomps such as this, which do mitigate the site and help with the concealment, but again, they become single carrier sites. So really what we're trying to do here, it's kind of unique insofar as that we are actually trying to maintain the coverage that T-Mobile has with the other flagpole going away. So if that answers your question.
You did answer my question,
Okay.
thank you, and I think we need to take a look at the simple fact that Colony single pole was approved at 65 feet. Is that correct, Bob? Thank you.
I think it's actually the same as the one at the saloon, which is also 65. Now I would argue that the Colony is far set back, is probably a better location as far as, I mean, it won't be as visible as the saloon site, but that's also a 65-foot site. So 65 is pretty much the standard. The problem with this technology is, unfortunately, the antennas have to be high to propagate. If there was a way to put these antennas at street level or you know, at a low height, you know, that would be fantastic. But the reality is, the taller the antenna is, the more propagation, the less sites you need. But again, all we're doing is pretty much meeting the demands of T-Mobile customers here. So.
Okay. Councilman Magazine has a question for the
Yes.
applicant.
Yeah. How many sites did you look at?
Mayor Kavanagh, Councilmember Magazine, we looked at SRP, we looked at the Saguaro. We didn't look out on Shea because we thought that's, you know, and that's where the commercial is, and that's where we normally would gravitate towards. But we thought that they were non-starters because simply Shea is a very visible thoroughfare. So I must be honest that, you know, we actually, I mean, we gravitate towards an industrial zone. I mean, mini storage, having done the site at Colony, it's the natural for us to.
No, I understand that. What would have been your second choice? You looked around, decided on vans. Based upon looking around town, what would have been your second choice?
It's a good question because I don't think there is a second choice, and I don't know what the solution would be because we looked at the hillside just east of SR 87 where there's a few saguaros right now on the Salt River Indian community, and there's no space up there. That was kind of where we looked as well and thought, well, this would be a solution because it would give us the height.
And what if vans didn't exist? What would you do as a company?
I don't know. It would be a big problem for T-Mobile. That's all I know, to be honest. I don't know what they would have done because I don't see many opportunities around that area for a site other than vans. So I think it would be quite, unless that, you know, they would financially make it so that the flagpole wouldn't go away, which I don't know if that's even possible. But I know that they will be willing to show a lot of revenue at that flagpole to have it remain. So.
You mentioned sharing. I don't begin to understand the technology, but we get applications from T-Mobile, we get them from Verizon, we get them from others. And what really frightens me is when you said it's only going to grow. We're going to need more and more. Well, if we're going to need more and more, and there's no space, let's say Verizon comes in next week and says we need a location for a 65-foot tower. What happens then?
It's a valid point, and I don't know unless technology catches up, unless that there's a magic bullet there in the form of there's talks of and I think it's futuristic at this point, but there's talks of handsets being able to transmit. So in other words, your handset should be able to transmit in your local. Now I mean they're talking about that technology. I don't know how far away it is, but something like that is going to have to come. That's probably the solution because here's the other thing that to your point, and that is that, you know, the recent change in building code we're running, most municipalities now are running IBC 2012, which is a more stringent structural code. Well, that has put a lot of sites now over the limit as far as structural capacity, and so now you have a lot of existing even steel monopoles and lattice towers that when you apply the new code, there's no structural space on those towers. Now you can only enhance those or work on the foundation maybe once or twice. So that's you add that to the now. I'm not saying that's a big issue for Fountain Hills because you don't have many sites here, but it's a big issue overall because a lot of the infrastructure now that carriers would have thought would have capacity doesn't have capacity.
All right, just for the sake of discussion, let's assume that special use permit approved, you put up a 65-foot monopomp. What's to keep you from having an agreement with Verizon to use the same one? How would that affect?
Every carrier works together. You know, on the retail side, fierce competitive. On the infrastructure side, they all have reciprocal agreements and they work really well.
I'm not understanding what you just said.
So I'm just saying T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, Sprint all have reciprocal agreements. So in other words, they all co-locate on each other's towers. It's a very easy thing to do because it benefits all of them. I mean, on the retail side, they're fiercely competitive. On the infrastructure side, they're very cooperative. So, but here's the thing about a monopom is that, and there are some examples around Phoenix and Glendale. Once you add another carrier to a monopom, it defeats the purpose because now it looks really odd. You'll see antennas, you know, at a lower level. It defeats the whole purpose. What you're trying to do is kind of create a concealed site where the majority of people drive by. They see a funny monopom, but it doesn't really click with them that it's, and that's how effective they are.
I went over to the Alamo about 2-3 days ago to take a look at theirs, and I got to say it's a monstrosity. I mean, it's really ugly. I wouldn't want to be looking at that through my window or from my front yard. And this isn't directed at you, but I I would like to pick up on Councilman Brown's idea, and my suggestion would be to table this, to give you folks an opportunity to look around town, look harder and again, and see if there's a site to put up a 42-foot twin tower, sorry to use that term, but a 42-foot tower, and one at Vans about the same height, 42, 45, whatever it is. But when I saw the one behind the Alamo, it really troubled me.
You know, and to your point, I tend to agree with you, because the one at the Alamo is a whole different technology than what T-Mobile has. AT&T's antennas and equipment are a lot larger than what we use. And I agree with you. They're not really suited for monopoms, actually, because you can't really conceal them the way they're supposed to be concealed. So I tend to agree with you. But to your point about finding two solutions, whether they're a 65 or a 45, you still have the same challenge. I mean, we have to be able to find a property that's suitable with the fall zone, which is very difficult. We'll have to look at commercial properties. I'm sure if I came back here before this body and proposed a monopom out on Shea, that it wouldn't go down well. We have to find a willing landlord, which is not that easy to do, because these leases are long-term and they encumber the property for 20, 25 years. So that's a big challenge for a lot of commercial property owners. So I would say to you that, you know, any reduction in height is really going to cause us a huge gap in coverage. And
I thought you said that 245s might work.
That's probably the only solution. I'm not saying it would work, but that's the only solution. If you want to limit this one to 42, then I'm sure the only other option is to put another monopom, because if you look at the propagation map, we modeled 30-foot where the AT&T saguaros are, and the coverage went way down, as we had pointed out, with the areas that would have a gap in coverage from that reduction in height. So I guess I would argue that a 42-foot or a 60-foot, and it's really a 60-foot monopom for us, because we have to take into consideration the frond height. So really, whether it's 42 or 60-foot at this location, it's not going to change the aesthetics of the site. There's no hiding it, and let's be honest. But at the same time, putting in live palms, the homes are an adequate distance away to not really be impacted by this. It's a large industrial property. I mean, it's an ideal scenario from a municipal planning standpoint.
Okay, thank you for, your thorough explanation. Now, Councilman Leger has one more tiny question.
Just very, 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 very quickly, and I really appreciate all the technical knowledge. You need to understand that I respect what you're saying.
Sure, I appreciate
My position in fiduciary responsibility is to look at the conditions of the special use permit. I don't think this particular project meets that particular criteria. With respect to, you stated the technology has changed in 15 years. I understand that. But AT&T is on that ridge. And AT&T was looking at Vans. And AT&T has made this work for them. And with respect to visual, I take exception with that, because those residents at Mirage Cove are not at street level. They're above street level. And beyond that, if you look at Laser Drive, on the other side of a adobe wall is the street tombstone. And those people are high in elevation, and they will see this thing. All that aside, simply, I'm in tune with the previous council that denied the special use permit and asked the applicant to look at the hillside and see if you can make it work. It's my understanding that there's about a 30-foot difference there, and they're placing 35-foot swirls up there. They're getting the height they need, and they're making it work. So
Right, and if I could just respond, the reason that it works for AT&T, and you see our propagation map shows you that it doesn't work, but the reason it works for AT&T is that they do have a saguaro just east of 87 on the hill. That's why it works, because they have two sites serving Fountain Hills and Shea Boulevard. So that's why they can live with a lower rat center on the hillside you're referring to, is because they have a saguaro on the hill just at the Shea and 87 intersection.
Sure.
T-Mobile doesn't have that. T-Mobile is losing a site, a flagpole site at that intersection.
the bottom line is AT&T has made it work. Citizens are telling me that they can tolerate faux saguaros. They're fed up with these monopoles. They don't want to see any more of them. And with that being said, I make a motion to deny the special use permit.
We're still in the public.
Well, I
Public.
guess I'll just wait then.
Okay.
I understand.
Okay.
Just one more point before I go.
No,
If-
I'm just going to close the public hearing.
Okay. Thank you, I appreciate your time.
Since we have no speaker cards, I'm going to close the public hearing, and consideration of a special use permit as just presented. Any further discussion? And I had Councilman DePorter, who already said he wanted to make a motion, so I'm going to go to him first.
I move to approve the special use permit to allow T-Mobile to install a 65-foot tall faux palm tree cellular antenna array with attendant ground equipment at 16701 East Laser Drive, as outlined and subject to the stipulations contained in the staff report.
Mayor, second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'd like to amend the motion, asking him to look for an alternative site and also to increase the size of their natural palms to a minimum of 50 feet.
Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second for the sake of discussion.
Okay, any
I'd like-
discussion?
Yes. I don't understand how the two motions, how the amendment works with the main motion. Can somebody explain that to me?
Andrew, that's your job.
Just his motion, we start with the
The
amended
approval.
motion.
Well,
The amended, we're starting with that.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Magazine, as far as I understand it, the amendment to the motion would change the motion 180 degrees from an approval to direction to seek alternative sites. And then in the alternative, I'm not understanding how then the additional condition of the tall palm trees fits, so we probably should ask Councilmember Leger for that.
I'll modify that to just to look for an alternative site.
And do I get a second for that?
I seconded it.
Any discussion? And can we get a roll call vote on the amendment first?
Councilmember Hanson? Nay. Councilmember DePorter?
Nay.
Councilmember Yates?
Nay.
Vice Mayor Brown?
Aye.
Councilmember Magazine?
Aye.
Councilmember Leger?
Aye.
And Mayor Kavanaugh?
Nay.
Mayor, the nays have it, 4-3.
All right, we'll go back to the original motion.
Which I would like to amend, Mayor, if I may. And I would amend that motion to require the applicant to do a better job at camouflaging a 65-foot monstrosity with larger palms to kind of lessen the impact, which would come for a little closer to meeting the special use permit. And looking at your telemetry and kind of taking a look at that myself, I think we're looking at 45 feet, probably 50 and 55 feet. That would be a nice distance kind of below it, and you'd still have your coverage sticking out from the top of that. And that way, I think it's a nice compromise. So that's my amended motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a amended motion and a second. Any other discussion? We'll take a vote on, discussion?
I was going to say, if it pleases Councilmember DePorter, he can assume that so we don't have to vote on the second amendment.
Well, that's up to Councilman DePorter.
And just to clarify, Councilwoman Leger, that's to add the additional palms, and that's to bring them up to a 50-foot height, and then as well as extra fronds or fringe on the top to make it even more.
I was
palmy.
specifically referring to natural palms. Right now, there's two 25s and a 35 recommended. I'm suggesting a 45, a 50, and a 55 to give a little more camouflage and enhance, make it look a little more natural. You know, that's, yeah, so was that clear?
I accept that as part of my motion, if I may.
I'll redo my second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any more amendments? We'll have a roll call vote on that one.
Councilmember Yates?
Aye.
Councilmember Leger?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brown?
Aye.
Councilmember DePorter?
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson? Councilmember Magazine?
Aye.
And Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Mayor, 7-0.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, council discussion direction to the town manager. Anybody have anything to direct towards Grady?
Mayor, I'm sorry, before we go on, just one other comment with regard to,
Go.
I want to ask staff to review something.
Oh, then you directing to Grady.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what you can do now.
Thank you.
Go, talk to him.
I wonder if we shouldn't review our regs regarding the 300-foot buffer. That just seems to be inadequate to me to notify people, particularly if you're talking about a 65-foot edifice.
We'll come back with a staff report on that.
Anything else for Grady? If not, any other activities or anything anyone wants to tell us about? How you spent your summer vacation? No? And Councilman Magazine, did you download the app?
No, I still can't do it. It's going to take me time.
Mike, he needs help.
It's going to take instruction.
I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?